Going for two. They're going for two.
Yes, this is the 2 Point Cowboys podcast. I am your host, Mr. Will Steele, here today with my partner in crime for the first time, but not the last time, Tony Iosso, writer for Cover32 Dallas and editor. What's up, my man?
What's up, man? Happy to be here.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get this thing popping, man. I'm real excited about this and can't wait for this thing to take off. So, how's it going?
Yes, sir. Doing good, man. Doing good. Getting ready to get back up against these Packers this week.
That wasn't fun last week at all. Definitely after watching, the Eagles get that victory, that kind of sucked. But that's all right. I think we'll bounce back for sure. But you want to give us a quick rundown of what happened last week in the NFC East with our rivals? Yeah,
man. Let's start at the bottom of the division with the Giants. Giants are sitting at 0-4 right now. Love the sound of that. Feels good to say. They're 0-2 in the division, which is big too. Already got a loss at the Cowboys and against the Eagles. Last week they lost against the Bucks, 25-23, last second field goal. And then this week they got the Chargers, which they could get the win against the Chargers, put them at 1-4. But after that, they got to go to Denver, against Seattle, and against the Rams, and we just saw what the Rams can do. So they could be sitting at 1-7, and then, they could be looking at potentially tanking the season and drafting that Eli replacement.
Yeah, when you said that prior to the show, I really didn't even take in factor that their schedule. I didn't know they played the Broncos, followed by the Rams in Seattle. That's ugly. Everyone's talking about our schedule being difficult. That schedule is probably the toughest one, so I wouldn't want to be a Giant fan right now.
Nah, man, and then you factor in Brandon Marshall was supposed to be their big acquisition in the offseason and make that offense, like, all we heard all offseason was how great and powerful it was going to be. That's been a disappointment. Eric Flowers still can't block anybody. They have no running game. Like, I'm very happy with the state of the Giants right now.
Yeah, we may not, have the greatest line right now, chemistry-wise, but at least we're not the Giants. We can always be the Giants.
Exactly.
So what's going on with the Redskins?
The Redskins, a little bit more respectable. They're sitting at 2-2, same as us, but they're 0-1 in the division. They lost the Eagles opening week of the season, so we're sitting at 1-0, so we got the leg up on them there. They're coming off a loss to the Chiefs, 29-20 on Monday night. They've been competitive in every game so far. They got the 49ers coming up, so that's probably a win there. Then they got 2 division games. They got to play the Eagles again, which is weird scheduling quirk. They knocked both Eagles games out of the way early. And then they got us in Dallas and then Seattle as well. So, the Redskins, they could be sitting right at 500 too after the next quarter poll.
Yeah, I give them a little bit more respect. Actually a lot of bit more respect than the Giants. Strangely enough, speaking as a fan, I don't have this weird hate for them like I do for the other two. Maybe it's because the Redskins have just been sucking for the last 20 years, but they're just kind of like the little brother that annoys you. But I don't look at them as like a dominant team or anything, but I definitely respect them, and it's not going to be easy when we play them. So
I used to feel like that with the Skins, but then I moved down to Virginia for 5 years, and living amongst Redskins fans for that long, like, you develop a real hate for them real quick, man. Every year they're going to be the Super Bowl champs. Every year it's like, man, I thought some Cowboys fans were bad. Redskins fans, they take the cake down there.
That's definitely understandable. So we got through those two, and then you have Philly sitting at the top. Excuse me while I go wash my mouth out. They're 3-1 in the division, and tell me what you got going on with Philly.
I can't even deny it. The Eagles have looked pretty good. We were saying off air the other day, Coach Peterson and Carson Wentz, like, they got an aggressive style offense. They got Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith. They can attack you vertically down the field. And when you look at the state of our defense the past couple of weeks, they could present some matchup problems with us down the road. But they're still lacking a running game. They've been a little banged up themselves on the defensive side of the ball. They got to play the Cardinals this week at home, but then they got to go to Carolina, who's been picking it up, and then like I said before with the Redskins, they got to play the Redskins again. So, I mean, they could grab a couple losses in there, be 3-3, 4-2 over the next couple weeks. So what I'm getting at is, 2-2 for the Cowboys, not the end of the world. Even if they lost this week and went to 2-3, they're still right there. The rest of the division has tough upcoming schedules. We're all going to be there, coming, battling around Thanksgiving.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think anyone is going to pull away early. But the Eagles, they have an opportunity. I mean, I don't think this team is great either, just like the Redskins. But they are finding ways to win this year as opposed to last year. They were finding ways to lose. I feel like Peterson and Wentz have a better chemistry or better connection than they did last year. As you said, he's an aggressive coach, and he is becoming an aggressive passer, and I think it's working hand in hand. Again, I don't think they're this awesome, great team, but at this point, this early, it's just, hey, rack up these wins, and it's a battle of nutrition because people are going to get hurt, teams are going to get banged up, it's going to get ugly, and it's about winning. Now, with that said, they're one game above us, man. Remember last year, they were 3-0, they were 3-1 at this point, so I'm not gonna put them on a pedestal, but I tip my hat to the first quarter of the season. They lead the division at 3-1, unfortunately, above our Dallas Cowboys, who have a tough match coming up, and that's where we want to preview the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys game, which I know you feel this way, is going to be a tough matchup. But before we get into the X's and O's of things, what's going on with our injury update, and I'll kind of give you a rundown of what's going on with the Green Bay Packers.
All right, so the Cowboys got into practice on Friday. Not much change from Thursday. Backtracking a little bit, Tyron Smith did show up on the injury report. He was limited on Wednesday, and then he didn't practice Thursday and Friday. The Cowboys think that he's going to be able to play on Sunday, but with a back injury, you never know. I mean, that thing could tighten up on him Saturday night, and then next thing you know, we got Byron Bell trying to deal with Clay Matthews coming off the edge, which isn't ideal.
Let's not talk that into existence.
The other big name this week is Sean Lee.
Yeah.
He hasn't really seen the practice field at all for the past 2 weeks. He's been in the gym working out during most media parts of practice, so it's not looking like he's going to play. Positive news, Anthony Hitchens will be back.
Give me some positive news, Tony.
Yeah, man. Back to the positive side. Hitchens will be back, so that'll kind of ease the load on Jalen Smith. I know the Cowboys didn't really want to have him playing this many snaps this early in the season, so he'll be able to kind of catch his breath, so to speak, this week. Get Hitchens, a nice veteran, solid leader back in the middle of the defense, knows the defense, can make the calls, help shore up that run defense a little bit. Outside of that,
give Jalen Smith a little bit of breather too.
Yeah, exactly. Nolan Carroll's going to be back this week, which I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll just leave that at that. But Chidobe Awuzie will be back this week, which I'm real excited about. I've been real high on him since we drafted him, and he's just kind of been nicked up, banged up all through since he's got to Dallas. So hopefully he's finally healthy.
You got the Miles Austin syndrome, right? The hammies. That's what it's been, right?
That's like a Cowboys plague, man. Everybody's got hammies everywhere.
But who's the biggest guy we get back this week? Literally and figuratively speaking.
Well, I mean, he's a mountain of a man, if you want to call him that. We got David Irving coming back, which, if you factor in DeMarcus Lawrence's recent play, I mean, that should really present some teams a lot of problems trying to block both of those guys. And then you factor in DeMontre Moore. He's going to have his second game coming back from the suspension. You think he's going to have his feet underneath him a little bit more. He looked real good in the preseason. So this defensive line that everybody was kind of down on to start the year is really starting to come together.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into the significance of Irving coming back, Moore getting a few games under his belt, and D-Law being a monster later on. But we're getting a couple guys back, but like you said earlier, Lee's probably going to be out. Tyron Smith, we're not sure about. So between Lee and Smith, which one do you think is the bigger loss? Because for me, I think the biggest loss for this game will probably be Tyron Smith.
I agree.
Because we have Hitchens coming back, so that helps a lot. And I know everyone on the Twitter world is down, and even on other websites are down on Jalen Smith. I'm not down on him. I think he's played too much. That sounds crazy. It's a positive that he's played a lot because that means he's getting better and he can do it. But he hasn't played football prior to week 1 for over 500 days. He's not ready for the amount of snaps he's getting. So, losing Lee and Hitchens was huge, but getting Hitchens back is, I think, can mitigate the loss of Lee. But losing Tyron Smith, that's not fun for the offense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I mean, you think, just for the reasons you just said, you factor in who would take Lee's spot in Hitchens, and then who would take Tyron's spot in Byron Bell. I mean, there's really no comparison. Like, the drop-off from Lee to Hitchens is a lot less significant than from Smith to Bell. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%, though. Yeah.
Yeah, Bell was not impressive in the preseason. When we first signed him, I'm like, good veteran depth. Big mountain of a man himself, but not the greatest skill set, and we really just wanted him for right tackle depth, not left tackle depth. We were talking about it yesterday. We personally were hoping that maybe Chaz Green would slide out the left tackle. He performed well, right? Last year he performed well at left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see that, and then we'd slide Jonathan Cooper, keep him at the left guard spot. I'd actually like that combo better than to see him and Byron Bell take the field. But you never know. Hopefully he surprises us. Actually, hopefully we don't even see him on the field Sunday or all season for that matter. And Tyron Smith will be able to continue to manage these back issues and make it through all 16 games and beyond.
Well, let's hope. Well, for the Green Bay Packers, their injury list is a little bit extensive too. It goes about 8-9 deep. But the big names, you have Devontae Adams, who was a limited participant for the last 3 days, David Bakhtiari, Ahmad Brooks, Brian Bulaga, Mike Daniels, Devon House, all had limited participation, except Devon House. He was a full participant today, and he's listed as questionable, as is the rest of those guys. Now, the running back, Ty Montgomery, he's doubtful. He's the one who broke his ribs last week, and for whatever reason, people kept saying that he might play this week. I thought that was crazy because he has multiple broken ribs, and he's not Tony Romo. So
True.
He's not. Yeah, I don't think he's going to play. He's listed as doubtful. However, I know you probably watched that Thursday night game last Thursday as well. And did you see the hit Devontae Adams took?
That's where I was going to go next with you. When they said earlier in the week that he was feeling great and Coach McCarthy thought that he had a real good shot to play, I was like, are we talking about the same guy?
Yeah.
Because his mouthpiece flew about 20 yards across the field when he got hit. And I mean, all joking aside, like that was a seriously dirty hit. And I mean, I'm glad he's okay. I think it's remarkable that he's even got a chance to play this week.
Well, you might call it remarkable. I call it stupid. Listen, I'm glad that the guy is okay and healthy. I know everyone in football is probably glad that he's okay and healthy. However, you cannot preach concussions and all this other stuff, and then after a guy gets brought out on a stretcher, you're talking about, he can play next week. What? That makes zero sense to me. That makes zero. This isn't, he got on a stretcher because his leg or he had a little neck bang up. He had a concussion, a severe one, looked like to me. Apparently not, according to the injury report.
Yeah.
But dude, there's no way you could tell me. It's like he went limp on that hit. Mouthpiece
he was
flew
knocked out. He was
eyes
cold.
back of the
knocked
head.
Out cold.
It was done.
Yep.
So that's where we're at with the Cowboys injuries and the Packers injuries. Aside from the skill guys that most people will know, and Devontae Adams and Ty Montgomery being potentially out, I personally think the biggest names there are David Bakhtiari and Bulaga, who that kind of sounds like a WWE tag team, doesn't it? Bakhtiari and Bulaga.
Bulaga, yeah.
Well,
the B brothers.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a what do you call like a Samoan tag team. But listen, they may not be a WWE tag team, but they're probably one of the best tag team tackles in the NFL. And I remember playing them twice last year. In the first game, we killed that. We killed that line, and I think they were a little banged up. But in that second game, Bakhtiari played like an all-pro tackle, dude. He was shutting things down over there. And Balaga's good, too. He's a Pro Bowl player. So, as a fan, obviously, you don't want to see them out there. But I'm not rooting for injuries, but it helps the Cowboys if they aren't out there. And it significantly helps the Packers if they are. So, with that said, where do you think that Dallas can take the most advantage of the Green Bay Packers? Is it with their offensive line because of the injuries, or do you think it might be because of their defense, which we'll get into here soon?
I think if either of those guys play, it's going to be hard for the Cowboys to generate enough pressure on Rodgers to really impact the game. But if one or both of them doesn't play, I think that might be the best chance for us to slow that offense down. Is you get David Irving back, you get DeMarcus Lawrence back. You can't double both of them, and hopefully David Irving can kind of repeat his performance from last year and just wreak havoc on that Packers backfield. But say they both do play, then I think you're going to have to take advantage of the defense. I think Dez has a great matchup this week. I know Kevin King, they used him to shadow A.J. Green when they played the Bengals.
Please use that rookie to shadow.
I'm hoping for the same thing. I mean, I know they like his size, which is probably why they have him shadow the bigger receivers. But, I mean, Dez would just abuse that young rookie, and I hope that's what we see on Sunday. So, I mean, if both those tackles play, the Cowboys are going to have to take advantage of that matchup, and they're going to have to find Dez deep a couple times early and often.
Well, if the tackles don't play, they're in deep doo-doo in regards to pass protection, because right now, I mean, without those guys, they flat out suck. They're really, really bad. They've given up already 15 sacks on the year in the first 4 games, and that makes them the 4th worst pass protecting team in the NFL in regards to sacks. And, that's mostly, obviously, due to not having those Pro Bowl tackles. But if they do play, like you said, it then transfers to the defense, which you just dove into the pass defense. Well, see, I'm going to talk about the run defense. Last year we went up against those guys, and it was, you guys, the Cowboys haven't played a dominant run D. Well, their run D was ranked number 1 last year. So, and Ezekiel Elliott and that offensive line was able to have some success. Well, through 4 games this year, they are not even close to number 1. They're giving up over 110 rushing yards, and teams are averaging over 4.2 yards per carry against them. And they've given up 23 first downs, and I got that per Marcus Mosher on Twitter, or Mosier, on Twitter. So they have a leaky defense. I know they have Don Capers, who's kind of a legendary defensive coordinator per se, but you can't patch up every hole, as we know in Dallas, Rob Marinelli. You can't patch everything up. So I do think, even though they may not have those guys, or even if they do have them, regardless of that, I feel like we need to take advantage of that bad Packers defense, because we may have not that great of a defense as we talked about yesterday, but for some odd reason, we get stops sometimes. But when we get those stops, we need to make the team pay by scoring on offense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, going back to what you said a little bit ago, we got to start fast early. Like, if we get the ball on the opening kickoff, like, you don't want to say the coin toss is going to decide the game, but if we decide to get the ball or the Packers decide to defer, I mean, we almost have to score a touchdown on the opening drive because Rodgers is going to get them in at least field goal position. So,
I'm glad
we got to take advantage. What's that?
Because Rodgers. Because we got this far, we haven't even talked about A-God. And for those out there,
we're trying to avoid that.
For those out there that, if you ever heard me, I said A-God. He's not A-Rod to me anymore. He's A-God. This guy is ridiculous. We could probably do a podcast alone on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's arguably
absolutely
the greatest.
Not arguably,
the greatest
he
talented.
is the greatest. In my opinion, he's the greatest quarterback of our generation. I mean, I think he's better than Brady.
Talent-wise, it's not even. I don't even think it's close. And that's no knock on Brady, but the guy is amazing.
Right? Not at all.
The guy is amazing, and I don't want to relive the 3rd and 20 play. I mean, because then we have to relive that entire game. But that play was ridiculous.
Yeah,
seriously,
it's not human. Not human. That throw.
Roll it to his left with Durant bearing down on him, flick of the wrist, precise pass on the sideline where no one else but him can get it. How? As Kanye was, how, Sway? How?
Yeah, man.
Heartbroken. Man, I was heartbroken.
I still have nightmares of that pass.
I know. And I say all that to say that really does it matter what teams do to the Packers when it comes down to one man, Aaron Rodgers? We might as well change the name this year so far to the Green Bay Rodgers because he's literally carrying the team. Literally.
Yeah.
And
yep.
He's great. So hopefully if those guys don't play the tackles, we can put some pressure on them. And I do want to get into that in our Cowboys Spotlight. So we'll just go ahead straight to the Cowboys Spotlight matchup. And before I get to the pressure point, I want to talk about the Cowboys corners versus the Packers wide receivers. And I think this matchup, aside from pressuring Rodgers, is probably the second most important in the game to me, because even if you pressure Rodgers, he is great outside the pocket, which means we're going to have to cover probably a little bit longer than we'd like. And tell me who you think our best corner has been so far, and it may surprise some people.
I mean, I think hands down our best corner has been Jordan Lewis, no matter where he lines up on the field. I mean, in pass coverage and run support. I mean, despite his size, I know that was kind of a knock on him coming out in the draft. I mean, he's been one of the shortest tacklers on our defense, which isn't really saying much to this point, but I mean, he's been very impressive.
Yeah, and coming out, I thought Jordan Lewis was the best cover corner in the draft. I thought he came in already with elite cover skills, and that's going to be very important Sunday afternoon when they have to play the Packers, because I don't think the Packers wide receivers can get behind you. I know old Jordy Nelson could. Yeah, so that whole, white guys aren't fast, that was false. When Jordy was a buck, he could burn you. But now Jordy's more of a possession wide receiver that can sneak. He can get by you, but he's sneaky. It's not as explosive as it used to be. So his separation isn't the greatest, but his hands are really good, and he's clever, and Rodgers can put it anywhere. I don't expect Devontae Adams to really play, so I won't dive into him. And Randall Cobb's not going to blow by you. Everything's going to be in front of you. And Geronimo Allison usually takes advantage of space and zones. He's not going to run by you either. So it'll be important for the Cowboys corners to cover. Anthony Brown is going to have to be sticky, and he usually is. Jordan Lewis is usually sticky. The corner that concerns me if they get the matchup is the old guy, Orlando Scandrick, a.k.a. the Grouch. I love his heart and everything, right? I love his feistiness and everything, but he cannot cover bigger receivers down the field. As we saw in Arizona.
Right. Yep.
If they get a matchup of Jordy Nelson on Orlando Scandrick, I can see that being something that the Packers take advantage of. So I do think the Cowboys corners versus the Packers wide receivers is probably the second most important spotlight to watch in this game. But as we were saying prior to Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just touch real quick on, Scandrick matching up with Jordy or some of the top Packer receivers. I mean, I wouldn't be as worried. I'm deathly afraid of the Packers finding a way to scheme Jordy Nelson on Nolan Carroll, because I know we just talked about how Jordy doesn't have that deep speed anymore. Everybody's got deep speed against Nolan Carroll. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. You're going to look like Michael Johnson on the track when you match up against Nolan Carroll. That matchup scares me more than any other wide receiver corner matchup.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. See, I don't think Nolan Carroll is going to get matched up on Jordy because I don't think he'll be our top 3 corner. He may not even be in our top 4. So I don't know that he'll even have that opportunity. At this point, I'll be shocked if Nolan Carroll comes back and is our starter, right? I think it'll be Orlando Scandrick, Jordan Lewis, Anthony Brown, and then Awuzie. So I really don't see Carroll being a factor except for depth.
I think eventually you're spot on with that, but I don't know. You know, Jason Garrett, Nolan Carroll was the starter until he got hurt. I think they're going to give him some burn now that he's back. I mean, we didn't talk about it in the injury report, but Anthony Brown showed up late in the week with a bum ankle. I mean, I just think Nolan Carroll is going to find his way on the field somehow, some way, just long enough to mess something up.
Nah, I don't see it. We'll note that. We'll see who was right. We'll see
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. That's going to be a terrible message when he gets burnt for a touchdown. I'm going to text you and be like, I told you.
If I get I told you so text, I'm turning. But I think the most important spotlight, if you want to dive in a little bit, is David Irving and DeMarcus Lawrence versus the backup tackles for the Packers, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we just talked about, if the Packers tackles don't play, they don't even really have backup offensive tackles. They've been playing guards out at tackle, which is even worse. It's bad enough you got to play a backup tackle, but you're not even playing a backup who plays tackle. So, I mean, Irving, we talked about, he's a monster. He has already proven that he can dominate the Green Bay offensive line. DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, September Player of the Month in the NFC. He's just been on an absolute tear. He's actually impacting games like we thought he would coming out of Boise State. I mean, I know he's had some injuries, but he finally looks healthy and who we thought he was going to be. I mean, coincidentally enough, it is his contract year, but that's a topic for a different day. But I think more importantly than just sheer sacks, as you kind of touched on it a little bit before,
the pressures.
They got to keep the pressures, and they got to keep Rodgers in the pocket, because one guy we haven't talked about, Malik Collins, with the pressure up the middle. If Lawrence and Irving and the ends can keep Rodgers in that pocket, I think Malik Collins could have a heck of a game pressuring Rodgers right in his face, and quarterbacks take that pressure right in the face. I think that'd do a world of help for our secondary as well.
And if you go back and watch the game in Green Bay, I believe Aaron Rodgers threw his pick in the pocket. I believe against the Bengals a couple weeks ago, he threw his interception in the pocket. And I got another interception. Oh, the other interception against the Seahawks was in the pocket. So you're absolutely right. And it's crazy to say that, right? We're talking about the greatest quarterback, but you want to keep him in the pocket. And you want to do that because he's so great when he's on the move. He can flick his wrist and throw it for 40 yards. That's why we can't get undisciplined in our rush lanes, and we have to treat him like we treated Russell Wilson in 2014, where they did like the muddle rush. They didn't necessarily go straight up the field and allow him to have those lanes to step in and run. They kind of just muddled around. Now, I wouldn't want David Irving or DeMarcus Lawrence to, downsize their pass rush moves.
Not by any means.
You want them to go full 110%, but you don't want them to just sprint up the field. Because
don't take yourself out of the play.
Right. But that is definitely probably the biggest spotlight of the game, Irving and D-Law versus the tackles. I do think Irving is going to be a little bit of a snap count, being his first game back, but I hope that Rod lets him go. What did you see what Rod called David Irving yesterday?
Oh, I saw it, but I forget. What did he say?
He called him a dinosaur that is out there eating palm trees.
That's right. I saw the palm trees part. I did see that. Hey, I mean that's a pretty accurate description when you think about it.
Rob Marinette, he reminds me of like that old grandpop that was in the war, and he comes back home and he says the craziest analogies, and you're just like, what?
Yep. You just want to go talk just to hear the stories.
Just to hear him talk, just to hear him ramble. I wish I could meet Rod, just have a drink with that guy. He's hilarious. But he's not lying, man. David Irving is huge. He's all of 6'7", and there was a story out that to help stay in shape, he was boxing. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, that's gonna. I mean, I'm really excited to see what Irving. I think he's gonna come out of the gates hot. Honestly, I think he's just been chomping at the bit the last 4 weeks because the whole suspension was kind of like a misunderstanding to begin with. I mean, he did take what he took, but I mean, it wasn't like he was trying to gain a superior advantage or with anything. It was kind of like a miscommunication with what was in the product. So I know that kind of fired him up a little bit more, being that much more anxious to get back. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, same here. Now, we're all the way to almost towards the end of the show here, and we have not yet touched on what probably is one of the more polarizing things coming out of Dallas right now, which to me, if you read my article on Cover32 Dallas, you'll see it's really not that serious right now. But Dak Prescott, I'm sure you have some words on what's going on. I'll share my words, but is it too early for Cowboys Twitter or Nation to be getting all riled up about the quarterback?
Yes. Just one word, yes. I mean, if you really break down Dak's stats, he's statistically been like way better than he was last season through 4 games. Like yep. He has been our offense at some points when our running game has just been completely stalled. So, yeah, he's been a little bit inaccurate at times, and yeah, he's not the savior that he was leading us to 13-3 last year, but he's still a very, very good quarterback in his second year. You know, I mean, I think Cowboys Nation kind of lost their collective minds a little bit the last couple of weeks. But
wait, Cowboys Nation lost their collective minds? No.
Yeah, color me shocked, right? But I mean, we have 12 games left this season, and like we talked about before, 1 game out of the division. I don't really know what everyone expects, but I've been pretty satisfied with what I've seen from Dak, and he's only going to get better. That chemistry with Dez is only going to get better. The run game's going to get better, which is going to open up so many more passing lanes. Like, I'm really not worried at all.
Well, Tony gave it to you a little light. I'm going to give it to you.
Hell yes.
It's way too early to be getting worried about a quarterback who's 3rd in the league in passing touchdowns, 3rd in the league in QBR. He's 2nd in the league in total quarterback touchdowns, and he has a 90 quarterback rating. And like we said, he is in his 2nd year. Folks, you guys have to stop comparing him to the guy that shall not be named, because I don't want to start a craze. Leave that guy in the booth, okay? We have a young stud. He is a good quarterback. Is he perfect? No, he's not perfect. He has a lot he needs to work on. We get that. But when you go 9 touchdowns to 3 turnovers, and 2 of those turnovers were drops. One was a drop, and one was his arm got hit. Why are we even this whole thing of let's have a conversation about the quarterback? Why are we having a conversation about the quarterback? I don't understand it. If it wasn't for this quarterback, I doubt we're 2-2 at this point. It wasn't like those first 2 wins were blowouts. It took some plays to be made by the quarterback position.
Man.
You know,
everybody forgets about Dak's touchdown against Arizona when he went head over heels. I mean, that changed that game. You know,
it's a week-to-week league.
Yeah,
it's a week-to-week league. You know, we lose. No one cares about what happened the prior week. It is what it is. But basically, listen, guys. Dak Prescott is fine right now. He's now entering, as I said, if you read my article on Cover32 Dallas, he's now entering the next phase of his development, which is, yes, defensive coordinators have adapted. They have taken away the things that he likes to do. Now it's on him and the coaching staff to now counter that and become better at the things he's not great at. And we are seeing a little bit of struggles with him and Dak, but Dez, I think that gets settled eventually, because you can't have the chemistry they had towards the end of the second half of the year last year, and then it's just all gone, right?
Oh yeah, completely agree. I mean, it'll come. It's been a rough rocky start to the season. I mean, you just look at the defenses we matched up against. I mean, Giants, good defense. Broncos, good defense. Cardinals, good defense. All three of them borderline great defenses. So, I mean, the schedule is going to lighten up a bit here with the defenses we're going up against. So, I'd expect more of the 2016 Cowboys coming up in the next few weeks.
If Rocky is 9 touchdowns and 3 picks, listen.
Right? That's how spoiled we got last year.
Oh, man. Spoiled as ever. We went from Tony Romo to Dak Prescott. So we're expecting excellence out of a second-year quarterback. And we need to, like I said, alter our vision and look at it for what it is. He is in his 20 or 21st start. There are things he's not going to be great at. It takes time, folks, to be a 14-year veteran. You need 14 years, but it takes time to do those things that guy was doing, right? So, with that said, we're at the end of the show here almost, and it's only right if we do some crazy predictions, because I got one that's probably going to blow your mind, but I want to hear what kind of crazy predictions you got, and then we'll get into the final score before we end here. What's up?
All right, man, my crazy prediction for this week, I got Dez Bryant breaking out, going for $150 receiving and 2 touchdowns on 8 receptions.
I like that. Let me go in my fantasy lineup and see if I have that start. No, I like that. I do think Dez will get off. He got off on him in the playoffs, and we're back at home. I don't think Kevin King can hang with the guy. He does have the height, but if they follow him, right, that means I think Beasley goes off. That's not my crazy prediction, but I do think Beasley goes off if they show that attention to Dez. I know everybody was showing attention to Beasley this year, but from what I'm reading, with the whole Kevin King is going to follow him, he's not going to leave him one-on-one, and it's not happening. So I feel like they're going to show a lot of attention, and Dez and Whitney could get off. However, my crazy prediction, after talking up A-God the whole damn show, I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to commit 3 turnovers, and the last turnover will lose the game. That's right, 2 picks and a sack fumble, calling it. And I'll even go further. Anthony Brown gets a pick, and our guy, Xavier Woods, gets the other pick. I went in depth with that. So I got three turnovers for A-Rod, Anthony Brown, and Xavier Woods with interceptions.
Who's getting that strip sack?
Who get that strip sack? I'm going to say DeMarcus Lawrence. He keeps the streak alive.
All right.
He keeps the streak alive. He's going up against a guard. I mean, he's going up against a guard. He's going to get one. And let's not forget, Aaron Rodgers was strip sacked in Atlanta on the road, where he had an interception and a fumble. So he's back on the road in a place where he should have been 2 interceptions last year, but they took one back because the GOAT, Jeff Heath, he had 2 picks and they only gave him 1. But, so yeah, I got 3 turnovers, man. Is that crazy or what?
That is crazy, but
I'm probably
it's called crazy predictions for a reason.
I'm probably going to eat my words on that. So what do you got for the game, man? Let's predict the final score here.
Man, I've been rolling with the Cowboys all year. Pick them every week in our weekly picks. You can find it over at Cover32 Dallas. This week, I picked Green Bay there, so I'm going to stick with my pick from the article. I'm going to go with Green Bay 34-24, and then the collective sky will be falling on Cowboys Nation as we enter the bye week.
Man, I think the universe is going to fall on Cowboys Nation if we lose this
But I'm not
game.
worried. Let me put that on record. I'm not worried, but the internet might break around 7 o'clock on Sunday in Dallas.
Oh, my goodness. Let's just hope it doesn't have to do that. But with all that said, I think the injuries with the Packers are just going to be too much to overcome. The last time the Packers went up against a good team, and yes, I do think the Cowboys are a good team, on the road, they lost to the Atlanta Falcons, who also have a pretty good offense. And while Dallas's offense has not been elite, it does get a salivating matchup, both on the ground and through the air. So I think having those tackles out, probably Mike Daniels. I'm not hearing too many good things about that. and Ty Montgomery, and I don't think Devontae Adams plays, and if he does, he's one, hit away from not playing. I don't think he can overcome all that. I do think he is a god. I do think he is awesome, but I have them losing 24-31 Dallas, and that strip sack is going to come on the drive that he is trying to win. That is my prediction. How you like that?
All right. I like it a lot. I hope that prediction comes to fruition there, especially that last strip sack fumble, because our Cowboys, man, this game is going to come down to the last couple possessions probably, especially coming off that loss last week. I expect them to play well. I expect them to keep it close, but I don't know. There's just something about Aaron Rodgers. Like, I need to see our defense physically stop him with the game on the line before I can actually pick that. So I hope you're right, but we're going to find out.
Yes, indeed, we will find out. And we want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the 2 Point Cowboys podcast. I am your host, Mr. Will Steele. You can find me on Twitter @BecauseCowboys. And that was my man, Tony Iosso. You can find him on Twitter @Tigger11. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next week. Peace!